This is a PSA, or public sock announcement. Experts have declared Bombas socks as the best way to warm up chilly feet. These pairs are super cushy, soft, and designed for maximum coziness. Plus, for every pair purchased, another pair will be donated, so someone in need of essential clothing can stay warm this winter. Go to bombas.com/listen and use code LISTEN for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/listen and use code LISTEN at checkout.
Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
This is FunBelt Commissioner Keith Gill, and I listen to the FunBelt podcast.
If you didn't know before, now you know why they call this the FunBelt.
Very excited about the Sun Belt.
You know, while other conferences have been breaking up, our conference has become stronger.
The state of Sunbelt football is the strongest in our history.
I saw FunBelt Conference, and I'm like, I don't know what this is, but I got to join the show. It sounds a lot of fun.
NCAA softball, baseball, a lot of stuff happening around the Sun Belt. Meetings with ADs, coaches, everything, trying to sort out off-season stuff. Expansion on the table? I don't know. Jeremy seems to think so. We're going to talk about that here, but a lot going on, even though it's the off-season for some of our major sports here on the Fun Belt podcast. Guys, what are we going to talk about today?
Well, it's sort of, we've hit that kind of dead season, right, Tibbs? But there's some unfinished business. No. It's dead.
No.
I mean, we got baseball. It's dead for us.
We have NCAA. It's been dead for us since this time last year. But we have an NCAA. We have two NCAA regional teams in softball. We have the final week or weekend series of college baseball before everybody heads to Montgomery, or everybody except for us, Jeremy, and maybe
we're not going,
and also Marshall. Yeah, we're the fantastic trio there. We're not going anywhere close to Montgomery.
We don't get to go. Shane gets to go.
Shane gets to go.
I will not go. I will watch, but I will not go.
Spiritually,
I appreciate you standing in solidarity that if we don't get to go, you won't go, Shane.
Yeah.
Yes, Arkansas State got closed out by Appalachian State, was ahead in all three games over the weekend, lost all three games. They really needed to win at least 2 out of 3 to stay in that. So they're out. ULM out as of last week. And like you said, Marshall. So it's really these last remaining games are just kind of like, just a formality, right? We've got one conference set still to play. That's right?
But,
there's nothing over.
Yeah, it's this weekend, but it has a great close to the season.
Do tell.
The Cajuns headed to Hattiesburg to face Southern Miss. Southern Miss currently tied with Coastal Carolina for the lead.
Yes.
The Cajuns, if they can get a sweep, I believe have the head-to-head with Coastal and would actually backdoor a regular season championship.
Wow. That would be so like the Cajuns, would it not? Just to come swooping in while the powerhouses beat each other up.
But nice. I still sit corrected because I just looked it up.
No.
And actually, Coastal Carolina, I was thinking that they took 2 games, but I forgot it was 11-inning thriller that Coastal actually won 3-2. So Coastal does have the head-to-head. So you have to kind of pull for Coastal Carolina to trip up in their season finale against Marshall's. Don't think that's going to happen, but Marshall, with nothing else to play for, could play spoiler and wind up bumping a top 10 Coastal Carolina team out of the regular season title.
I feel like Coastal's firing on every single cylinder. I believe they beat North Carolina tonight. Again, I think they swept that little rivalry. So those guys, they kind of came out of, I wouldn't say they came out of nowhere. They're a former national champion, but I don't think anybody really expected Coastal Carolina to be the top team in the Sun Belt this year. But here they are. And maybe that's kind of one of the reasons why the Sun Belt really wanted Coastal Carolina was to to put a little more polish on that baseball portfolio, and they're doing the job. Way to go!
I thought it was because of the cool teal color.
No, by the way, teal is so 1990s. Do you guys remember the 1990s when everything was teal? Everything was teal. Cars were teal, houses were teal, clothing were teal, and about every new sports franchise that came off the block were teal. So no, I cannot stand teal.
Yeah, I was buying San Jose Sharks t-shirts at that point in my life, knowing nothing about San Jose or hockey, but
Charlotte Hornets teal.
Yeah.
It was like, oh God, what the hell is with all this teal? It looks gross too. Like, it doesn't age well. Like, you'll see cars from the 90s and they're teal colored and they just look terrible. I don't know what happened to our society that we woke up and said the answer is teal. But for a while, a good 5 years, maybe 8 years, it was teal. And now we continue the teal with the Chanticleers. And I guess that's okay. They can have teal. If that's
I'm with Shane. I had a San Jose Sharks shirt and hat. So, I was all about it.
It looked really handsome at the time. But now, we've all grown. We've matured. We know better now.
We haven't matured. We might have grown, but we haven't matured, Jeremy.
So all right, but you know what? Here's the thing too about the baseball season. It felt like Southern Miss was sort of faltering all year long, and then suddenly they've won like 40 games, and they're like one of the top teams in the country. I don't know if they pulled it all together at the end, but did you hear the news too that the coach? I think the coach is leaving. Did you guys see that?
Scott Berry hanging it up after I think I read somewhere it was 30, 40 years in the game. 14 at Southern Miss.
That's a guy who knows when to leave, when he's on top. You don't leave when you win like 5 conference games. You leave when you got nothing left to prove.
I'm out of here.
That's what that guy's. Yeah. I mean, one day that's how I'm going to leave the show. I'm going to deliver like this awesome plug promo or parting shot that is just so jaw-droppingly good. And then I'll be like, peace. I'm out of here, guys. And you guys will wave. You'll be like, I don't blame you. Leave on top.
We won't understand you anyway because you'll break up just like you just did.
Fuck.
So with baseball season winding down, I mean, you talked about Coastal Carolina being atop the standings. Maybe a little bit of a surprise there. Are there any other really big surprises that you've really seen this season in your take of the games?
I will. I did not expect James Madison to be like James Madison's not going to win the Sun Belt, but I did not expect James Madison to be like a competitive baseball team. I believe they had a sweep over the weekend. Is that not right, Shane? Did they not sweep their opposition?
They did not sweep, but they took 2 of 3 from Old Dominion, which I'm like you, not something I was predicting from the Dukes. They're on the verge of 30 wins this season. They are. I mean, my colleague, our friend Noah Fleischman, on another show earlier today, I heard him talking JMU baseball, and like he said, this JMU team probably would have won the CAA, which is something they had not done in a long time playing in their previous conference. And they step up in competition, and they play better than I think anybody expected JMU to play baseball this year.
Yeah, amongst my bitter Red Wolves colleagues, here was the prevailing wisdom that the only program that we would be better than at baseball this year would be James Madison. And once again, James Madison just poo-pooed all over that.
I mean, for JMU fans, I think entering the Sun Belt, if they had one program they were worried wouldn't be competitive in the Sun Belt, it was the baseball program. And, they're going to have a tough time. I mean, going down to Georgia Southern's not going to be easy this week, but if they can win that series, they might finish 4th, which is like way, way better than anybody expected. They're not they're not Southern Miss, they're not Coastal, but they're much more competitive than people expected year one.
Now, is kind of the way James Madison is surprising. Is Georgia Southern a little surprising in that we're not talking about them in the way we're talking about Coastal and the Cajuns and Southern Miss?
I think so. I mean, just based on where they were last year, what they have as a program, the support they have, you know, you kind of expect them to be there year in, year out, right? You don't necessarily expect them to go get swept by their rival Georgia State. Like, you know, I think, you know, you pretty easily could have expected JMU and Georgia Southern to switch spots. And, you know, by the end of the week, maybe they will, because it's still pretty tightly bunched and they've got to play each other this week in Statesboro. But yeah, surprised that right now we're talking about JMU maybe finishing top 5 and not Georgia Southern.
Yeah, I believe Ben Moore, our good friend Ben Moore of Georgia State, took great glee in Georgia State, beating up on Georgia Southern over the weekend. So congratulations for Georgia State. That team seems to be doing fairly well for Georgia State, hammering out a lot of home runs, which makes the fans happy. Tibbs, do you have any team that kind of took you by surprise, either good or bad?
I'm gonna go actually. Maybe I'm homering still. Troy. I think that the Troy Trojans have really put it together. They are have a solid pitching staff. I saw it was like 560 something strikeouts on the season. They're legit, and I think you combine that with the home run hitting of Shane Lewis, currently second in the NCAA with 26 home runs, most in the Sun Belt Conference.
Yeah.
They're a force to be reckoned with. It'll basically be some home games for them when they're in Montgomery, just about an hour away from Troy. So I look forward to seeing what the Trojans can do, and maybe they can make a little noise there in the postseason.
That's a good pick. Yeah, it seems like the tournament might be a little bit wide open this year, kind of like what basketball was, although baseball, legitimately good. Basketball, just an amusing conference sport right now.
And I think it's interesting, and we'll talk about it later on with our guest, Jay Walker. You know, the Cajuns, they're literally beating their opponents in that they are just pounding out the hits. They're solid defensively, but their pitching has been terrible this season.
Yeah. Which is not something you expect from the Cajuns.
You expect the complete opposite.
Yeah, when I think of the Cajuns, I always think great pitching. So so sort of doing a little bit of a judo flip on that one. So again, a very interesting tournament. It does seem like there has been a lot of offense in general in the Sun Belt this year. That's just me looking at from the outside in, not really weighing the numbers, but it does seem like that there is a lot of hitting in the Sun Belt this year, which I always think comes in handy, especially late in the season. So good. I hope that after the Sun Belt tournament, we see multiple entries into the NCAA and do a little bit better this year in the NCAA tournament. I hope that we've kind of toughened up a little bit. We've got the experience and we can kind of move forward a little bit. So we talked a little bit, Tibbs, about the conference meeting, the Sun Belt conference meeting, the spring meeting, a little bit last week. Didn't really, I don't know. We don't really know what the agenda is. We know kind of what they want to talk about. They're meeting now. So Shane had mentioned earlier offline that the basketball people were there. Are we going to see, like a couple of years ago, one of the big things that came out of the spring meeting was a real big focus on scheduling, that there would be more peer scheduling, that there would be a greater effort on toughening up that schedule so that the league as a whole could rise up in the net rankings. I don't know if we've been successful in that. Do you think that there's anything else that's going to come about with the basketball coaches coming into town, what they might have to say?
I mean, I definitely think it's something that we've seen, that the scheduling has improved and the net has improved. And this year we'll see it again. I mean, I look at some of the early games that have already been released. Texas State goes to Houston. They go to Sam Houston State, now of Conference USA, and then host UTSA. ULM is moving into Texas because they'll play Houston, Lamar, Sam Houston, Jacksonville. Okay. So I feel like the days of Champion Baptist and the 100-point wins are going to be few and far between. You're still going to have, I think, one of those a year. But I don't think that you're going to see 3 and 4 of those games anymore.
I mean, for a long time, Arkansas State was like a lot of those type of NAIA teams. And then the SWAC, it seemed like all we play is the SWAC. Coach Brian Hodgson has promised that the schedule's going to get a lot tougher. How about you? What have you heard, Shane Mettlen, with your reporter's ears to the ground? Have you heard anything bubbling, seeping to the surface?
I talked to one person who was heading to the airport today to go down there. And for basketball, yeah, they did mention 2 things. The scheduling to improve net, like we talked about. Yeah. And the other thing this person mentioned was that they were looking forward to going to the officiating seminar to see what they had to say about the women's basketball tournament and the 6 players on the floor at the end of the
still bitter.
Yeah. So
that was Troy, right? Was that Troy that
was Troy? Yes, that lost when they didn't have enough. They didn't have enough people to guard all 6 players on the floor.
Yeah, that is rough. Yeah, that was a rough deal. I can't believe that's going to be a discussion, but okay.
No, apparently, I guess that kind of stuff comes up as they talk about officiating and points of emphasis and how to improve, I guess, every aspect of the sports that they talk about down there. They have a seminar where they talk to officials about things like that.
Yeah, and one thing we also mentioned last time we talked about this, and Thibs made a good point. Yeah, the net has gotten better. This sort of MAC Sunbelt Challenge is going to make a big difference too. So and that's going to make a big difference to what the schedule looks like, because it used to be for the Sunbelt, everything non-conference happened November and December. And then after that, it was nothing but conference for the rest of the year. Now we get that break, which I think is going to be really interesting. It's going to be a lot of fun. So, and I guess too that's going to make conference play come a little bit earlier. Is that right? Maybe we'll see it more earlier in December.
I'm not sure exactly how it's going to work, or if it's just one week where you got to play an extra game, or you play one less conference game, or I don't know exactly how it's going to work, but.
I do know that the SEC does that Big 12 challenge, and that seems to push their conference a little earlier in the season. Like they get started a little bit earlier. So I don't know if that's going to do the same for the Sun Bowl or not. I'll be looking at the conference with great interest, or the schedule with great interest when that happens.
Yeah, but I don't know. Maybe they'll do it like the ACC does, where sometimes they'll play a random conference game in like mid-December. And then their next conference game is not till like late January. Yeah, I mean, the ACC does weird stuff sometimes with their scheduling, so maybe they'll do something like that.
But would you rather have an earlier schedule of conference, or do kind of like the Southland did either last year, maybe 2 years ago, where they had kind of a mid-season tournament, and that is kind of what played into seeding for the postseason tournament?
Explain that. What do you mean a mid-season tournament?
They went and did a kind of round robin matchup mid-season, like right around December, January. Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty crazy and interesting. Yeah. I wonder if anybody will follow that model.
I don't think anybody has, because I don't know if the Southland is doing that again.
Well, they lost their bowling conference, so pretty much they're probably in a state of complete disarray.
For sure.
I get nothing. So all right. So basketball's coming. Shane says the football coaches and staff coming later. That will probably be when the news starts sprinkling out. I did write an article, guys, for hellraiser.com, because we were talking about this earlier in the week, and we start talking about possible expansion. We kind of laughed it off. But the news that's been coming up in the last couple of days has been kind of what's going on with the Pac-12. The Pac-12 is having one hell of a time coming up with a broadcast agreement. Meanwhile, the big wigs from the ACC, Florida State and Clemson, rumbling about leaving, perhaps, maybe going to the SEC. I don't know, maybe going to the Big Ten, kind of like what Texas and Oklahoma did. Pac-12, according to SI, Sports Illustrated, is pretty much already has San Diego State in the bag, reportedly looking at SMU, UNLV, which probably is one of these schools that has the greatest growth potential, being out there in Las Vegas. It's being looked at, I think, by the Big 12 and the Pac-12. So there's going to be more realignment, which means that the weak is going to get weaker and the strong are going to get stronger. So I thought to myself, the only way the Sun Belt survives is just to get bigger. I'm talking mega conference bigger. I'm not talking about going up to 16 or 18, but 20 freaking teams. Make it so big it cannot fail. The Sun Belt, too big to fail. Guys, what do you think of this? Is this the only way to survive?
I don't think so. I mean,
okay.
For one thing is, where are any of the current Sun Belt teams going?
To me, I mean, it's not a matter of them going. It's a matter of being phased out from relevance. Being that if you only have 14 teams to look at, and then you have these well-moneyed conferences just blowing them away in terms of broadcast exposure. So if you have more footprint, more eyeballs, more people interested, that's where the strength comes in. You just yeah.
For our listeners, because I know we don't do video, Shane, I want you to describe Jeremy's face for my next statement. Hey, Jeremy, we're bringing back Idaho, baby.
Oh, fuck no.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, this is part of my thing, though. Is like, okay, if you're going to go to 20,
okay,
who are those 20 going to be? And are they going to be any teams that like actually do bring any more interest? Are you gaining anything by bringing in, Missouri State and Eastern Kentucky?
None of those.
Okay.
No. All right. Rule number one, Shay.
Vandals.
No more FCS.
Okay.
That's what Conference USA is doing. It's you know what that's doing? It's giving the Power Five reasons to say, hey, look at how we've diluted this product. We're bringing in all these FCS guys in here. Pretty soon we're going to have 150 programs. Why should I, Alabama, be on the same footing with Eastern Washington? It's not fair. So all we're doing by elevating all these programs, and we've done that. We at the Sun Belt are guilty of that, but we stopped. We're not doing it anymore. And we got to stop doing it. We can't just start filling places with more FCS programs. Somebody said to me, let's get Missouri State. No, Missouri State brings nothing to the table. It only creates more ammunition for the Power Five to say, we're going to break off. We're going to build our own league. And you guys, no, what we need to do is get rid of some of it. We need to pick on the weak link. And that weak link is Conference USA. We just need to approach the rest of those guys. And I know that you hate Louisiana Tech Tibbs, but we got to have them. We got to have, I forget who else is even in CUSA now.
You want Liberty also?
God, I grit my teeth. I gnash my teeth. Yes, we got to get in Liberty. Do we have to get in WKU, Western Kentucky? Absolutely. And you know who else we need to grab?
New Mexico State.
No, we can leave New Mexico State out. But we can get the Army. Wouldn't you love to have Army?
To quote you from what you just said about Idaho, fuck no, I don't want Army.
Yeah.
Oh God, I would love Army. All they do is play the Sun Belt anyway. We'd love that. You would love that.
Yeah, but the thing everybody loves about the Sun Belt is that it's regional.
Yeah.
And you're wanting to go to upstate New York.
That is true. Okay. Yes, but Army is America's team, Shane. There's no region there. Army protects us all.
Okay.
Whether it's California or Maine or Florida or Wisconsin.
Make them play their home games in Nashville and it might work, but
they wouldn't care. They could just move the base.
Yeah, we're going to relocate West Point to Middle Tennessee.
Listen. I know you guys are calling me a crackpot. I can feel it. But what I'm
amongst other things.
But what I'm describing to you, Tibbs, is the future, and you need to get on board. This needs to be the FunBelt podcast stance. We need to go ahead, write up a proclamation, and send it to Commissioner Gill immediately.
I'm disappointed that you're forgetting the roots of the Sun Belt and not taking back Idaho, New Mexico State. I bet you wouldn't even want Middle Tennessee back in with the Blue Horse.
That was the other one. Middle Tennessee State. We got to bring them back in. I hate them. We got to bring them back in. Just like you hate Louisiana Tech. Just like Shane hates Liberty. Well, Shane hates every team and has an insult comment for everyone. But we should have them all in. We should have a 20-league conference so big, so powerful that even the SEC begs for our mercy.
So the Sun Belt got where it is now by sort of bucking the big trends that everybody else is doing. They're keeping it regional. They're keeping divisions. They're keeping old rivalries and teams that make sense to play each other. I just don't necessarily see. I mean, some of these teams would still fit and make sense.
I know, and I've thought.
But what's the ultimate goal for the Sun Belt right now? Is maybe squeeze a little bit more money out of ESPN eventually.
Oh yeah, sure.
And get a team into the playoff and get the money from the playoff.
Yeah.
You add 20 teams, you're just diluting all of that. You're making it, if you do get somebody into the playoff, then you're splitting it 20 ways. And I don't think Western Kentucky or Middle Tennessee, they'll be competitive, but they're not going to make ESPN say, you know what, actually we'll give you $4 million instead of $2 million. Like, I just don't think they're going to.
Adding 6 more teams gives us 6 more chances to get into that tournament. That's what it does. I don't care if we get a little bit of money up. Yeah.
Here's 2 teams. If I'm Commissioner Gill,
okay,
and I've had a few too many beverages, and I decide to partake in HowRazor.com's outlandish article. I'm going to Tulsa.
Oh,
I'm going to Birmingham and getting UAB.
I know you love
UAB. Even though that gives me 3 teams in one state.
Yeah. You know who else that I like a lot that I wish we could get, and you guys are going to be like,
Idaho.
The reason, all right, first of all, the reason why I said no to Idaho and no to New Mexico State is for what Shane is saying. There is no regional rivalry action with any of those 2 teams. That's why they were a bad fit from the start, and that's why we got rid of them. I want Rice. I want Rice so bad, only because it just completely increases the academic profile of the Sun Belt. We become like the Princetons or the Ivy League of the South with the addition of Rice.
See, I like these teams that you guys are talking about now.
Okay,
but I
good.
feel like Sunbelt's in a position now where they can sit back and wait and see what happens with the Mountain West and the American, and who the Pac-12 raids and who the Big 12 raids. And if the ACC is going to fall apart with these 7 teams saying they're looking for a way out. I mean, you're talking about Rice. Okay. Wake Forest. Where do they go if the ACC completely falls apart? Because you look at their budget, it's the smallest Division I school by enrollment.
Yeah.
It's an hour away from App State. Their stadium is the same size as App State's.
No kidding.
Yeah, their budget. I mean, right now their budget dwarfs the rest of the Sun Belt. It's like $80 million, but it's closer to the top of the Sun Belt than it is to the top of the ACC. It's definitely closer to the top of the Sun Belt than it is to the Big Ten. And
Wow.
I mean, if the ACC is falling apart or it goes to unequal revenue distribution, where they're not going to get paid the same as a Florida State or something, like maybe they start to look at like, okay, the ACC isn't the league we joined. I'm not saying that's like likely to happen, but I think if you're a Sunbelt, you could sit back and wait, see what happens, and then swing big on teams that really fit you and maybe actually increase your profile quite a bit as far as like TV and things.
What you speak is wisdom. You are reigning truth. And you know what's funny too is I was reading something about the ACC today. And I think there's 7 of those guys that have kind of carved themselves away from the others.
The Magnificent Seven.
That's what they call themselves.
Yeah,
and I'm guessing Wake Forest is not part of the Magnificent Seven.
So if these other leagues start kind of falling apart, and the Sun Belt could add ECU and Wake Forest. I mean, that gives you 3 in North Carolina, but I don't necessarily see that like 3 in one state is like the end of the world. If you can get ECU and Wake Forest and UAB and Rice or UAB and Tulane or something, as everything goes crazy, then you're getting bigger, and you're actually probably going to squeeze more money out of ESPN if you add those teams too.
So North Texas.
I'd love to get North Texas back. They're an OG.
Well, but is that a team that moves the needle like we're talking about? Is that a huge addition, rating the AAC like Shane's proposal of getting Wake Forest?
I don't know. I don't know.
Let me backtrack a little bit and say I don't think getting Wake Forest is ever likely.
No,
but
Shane, you
but
said
who knows what
the scoop I got, Tibbs, was that we are getting Wake Forest into the Sun Belt, and this is Shane Mettlen exclusive.
But Shane Mettlen is a Heisman Trophy voter, so he definitely knows what he's talking about.
I'm just saying that the Sun Belt has the luxury of sitting back and waiting and seeing what happens everywhere else, because they're fine with their 14-team league the way it is right now. Like, wait and see what happens before, like, maybe having buyer's remorse for Western Kentucky or Louisiana Tech or somebody like that.
All right, now just kind of, you did a little backtrack. I'm going to do a little backtrack too. It kind of get out of the Sun Belt a little bit, although it'll eventually come back to the Sun Belt. If the Pac-12 kind of does what they say they're going to do, if they're going to grab SMU, I'm sorry, not SMU, if they're going to grab San Diego State and possibly UNLV, what does that do to the Mountain West, which is already down to 11 football programs? Are we getting to a point where we're just by all this attrition, all the subtraction, are we going to lose a Group of 5 conference? Are we going to, the way it's set up now, I mean, it looks, we could easily lose a Power 5 conference, but are we in danger of losing a Group of 5 conference, whether it is CUSA or the Mountain West?
I think that there will be a conference that has most of those members in it. And I also think that it could be something like if we created the Southwest Conference again. Now, would it be great that, we're a member of the Southwest Conference? You're damn right it would, but only if we were back in the 1980s.
Yeah. I don't know. I look at, even if the Mountain West loses a couple of their brand name, it's a better brand right now than Conference USA. And so if you're the Mountain West and you invite UTEP or New Mexico State or UTSA and just say you want to get into Texas, although they're going to the American, but like what I'm saying is, like, I think they could raid Conference USA pretty much anytime they wanted to survive.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Conference USA is probably the conference on the chopping block, But I wonder too, if does the Mountain West and the MAC say, hey, let's take our, 5, 6 best teams and combine them and make a new conference. I don't know. I mean, maybe there's some out of the box thinking that comes out of this to where we just sort of reshuffle everything.
I'm going to pull a good old Ricky Bobby with this, with all due respect, because I do like the MAC. They are definitely our brethren of the G5. But does anybody really want a MAC team? I mean, is the Big Ten knocking down doors saying, hey, Toledo, we want you?
You know what's funny, Tibbs, is that whenever we talk about realignment, MAC teams are never, ever in the discussion. I mean, there's never like a move to, Toledo could move to the Mountain West, or Buffalo could drift down to the AAC. You never hear any of that. And I don't know why, because MAC seems to have, if you look at their athletic budgets, they're not bad. I mean, they're pretty good and they can compete. So I'm not sure why the MAC is just such a quiet outlier of a conference. Shane, maybe you have some opinion on this, because I just cannot understand why the MAC is so quiet.
I don't think they fit geographically with anybody that's looking for teams right now. I mean, maybe like Miami of Ohio or Ohio fits with Marshall if the Sun Belt wanted to we'll start talking about Sun Belt expansion again. No, but who else is taking it? I mean, Toledo could have like an awesome run. I mean, they're pretty good in football. They're pretty good in basketball. It's a decent sized city and everything, but I mean, you're not grabbing them to go to the Mountain West. You're not really grabbing them to go to the American. They don't fit there really. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, the MAC just belongs together. The same way the Sun Belt belongs together, but the Sun Belt right now, it's a group of schools that belongs together. The Sun Belt's a group of schools that belongs together. The thing the Sun Belt has going for it right now is they're selling out stadiums and things. The MAC doesn't really do that.
MAC just does not have sex appeal, and I guess maybe because it's so damn cold. I don't know, but you know what? It's some of the best football and basketball stories come out of the MAC, and I just don't understand why they don't have that sex appeal.
And for whatever reason, the Sun Belt overlaps with the SEC and the ACC a little bit.
Yeah. But
the Sun Belt schools are kind of able to step out of the shadow and make their own brand a little bit. I mean, it's still tough. I mean, Jeremy, you complain about this. It's hard for Arkansas State to get away from the Razorbacks.
You're absolutely right.
But when they're winning, they still kind of have their own thing where they step out of it to some degree. And,
sure.
Marshall has its own thing. It's not West Virginia University, but it's still got its own thing going in West Virginia. There's a lot of Marshall alums that are Marshall fans.
Mm-hmm.
But in Ohio, I think everybody goes to Kent State's an Ohio State fan.
Yeah.
And everybody goes to Eastern Michigan is a Michigan fan. I mean, they can't really escape that Big Ten big brother that's looming over them quite the same way the Sun Belt has, for whatever reason. I don't know what the difference is really.
What we need to do is over the summer, we need to grab a MAC representative and have them explain this to us so that we can better understand. Or maybe, maybe the group of 5 guys could tell us. Tibbs, could the group of 5 guys clear this up for us?
If we can get past Middle Tennessee with them, yes.
They love Middle Tennessee.
They all played there. They all played and went to school there. So, I mean, good for them for being true to their roots there. Unlike you, Jeremy, already vacating Idaho, you want to erase them from the record books like they never existed. No Matt Leinart, no Petrino, no Kibby Dome.
Yeah, can we get the Kibby Dome but nothing else? Like we just have the Kibby Dome? We could put
because it's like built into the side of a mountain, like in a little valley. It was amazing. Jeremy. It was amazing.
Would it be a greater story if the Thibodeaux was carved out of an enormous potato? I think that would be like an even better story. Or if it was potato shaped, at least. That would have been.
It kind of is. It's an old hanger.
That's true. All right. You know what else we got? I guess all we have is Jay. Now, who's going to interview Jay? It's going to be you, Thibs, right? You're going to interview.
Yeah. Shane wasn't invited because Shane had a Heisman Trophy voter meeting. And so.
I see. He's sort of big time Jay Walker. Jay Walker is probably the most influential person in the Sun Belt, and you big timed him. You're in trouble, man. Your career is over, Shane Mettlen. Pack your bags. You're off to Russia, buddy.
Or Idaho.
Moscow, Idaho. Yeah.
Softball regular season is over. 2 teams from the Sun Belt going into the postseason. And of course, it's the conference champions that have won like 1 billion straight conference games there of the Ragin Cajuns. Joining us, the voice of the Cajun softball, Jay Walker joins us. Jay, welcome in. Always great to see you and talk with you.
Always great to see you guys too. I didn't get to do as many games on the radio as I would have liked. We have a guy who stepped in this year, Cody Juneau, did a great job, but I followed the program as closely as anybody, so I'm glad to be here.
So was it really that much of a surprise knowing that there was a stretch early on in the year, the team went 0-5? I mean, they were playing some top 10 caliber teams, getting a couple blowout losses from Oklahoma State, Florida State. But I even said it then, and I'll put some words in your mouth there, Jay. This team, I said this at the time, this team is a lot better than their record indicates. They're going to do big things. Is that a pretty fair assessment?
Yeah, I think so. I think you got caught a little bit early in the season. You had a girl who was the freshman of the year in the Sun Belt who didn't play in that tournament in Clearwater because of an injury. You had another one who wound up hitting like 12 home runs this year that wasn't even in the lineup then. The whole thing with the Cajuns was their record against the RPI top 25, which was not good. And then you sit there and you think about what might have been. You had a one-run loss to Arkansas. You had UCLA beat with 2 outs in the 7th inning, and they got a base hit to tie it, won it in extra innings. So, they came very close to perhaps having the kind of record you want to have in order to be able to host a regional. You also let a couple of games get away. I mean, you lost a game to Michigan you never should have lost and that sort of thing. But, once again, the team has won more than 40 games. Once again, they're the conference champions. And once again, they're getting sent to Baton Rouge. I mean, it's like deja vu, and deja vu.
Jay, we talk about Sun Belt baseball often because it seems to have really grown in strength over the last few years. Of course, the Cajuns are always on top of that discussion as well. But how do you see softball growing in the Sun Belt? You've seen the Cajuns dominate so much within the conference. Can the Sun Belt is Sun Belt softball growing just as quickly as baseball, or is it still falling a little? Is it just a little bit behind?
It's pretty close, Jeremy. It was just a couple of years ago that the Sun Belt had 4 teams in the NCAA tournament in softball. That was just a couple of years ago. Last year, they were a 1-bid league. This year, Texas State got in as an at-large. But when you look at Louisiana, South Alabama, Troy, Texas State, those 4 teams have gotten to be pretty consistent when it comes to softball, and they're usually in the mix for an at-large bid. Now, I think you can add Marshall to that. We saw Marshall here at Lamson Park for the championships. They came in with a lofty record and a terrible strength of schedule, so we didn't know how good they were. But they went all the way to the final game, gave the Cajuns all they wanted in a game that Louisiana won 1-0. So Marshall, in order to become part of the discussion for an at-large, they got to make their schedule better. But if we're asking, was the team good enough to play in the NCAA tournament? I think the answer to that was yes. So now you're talking about 5 teams out of 12 that might be in the mix year in and year out for an at-large bid. I think all of them have a ways to go to catch the Cajuns. There's a reason why the Cajuns have won 4 tournaments in a row. There's a reason why they're, in the top 15 of the RPI. But those other teams are competitive, and they're making the league better.
South Alabama, heard a little grousing from South Alabama fans about Texas State getting in and the Jaguars getting out. Do they have a beef?
Oh, you can make numbers look any way you want to. They can say, hey, look, we finished like 3 spots ahead of you, 3.5 games ahead of you in the standings. We won 2 out of 3 from you. But Texas State's got a couple of top 10 RPI wins. And the committee looks very closely at who did you play, and more importantly, who did you beat? And I think those 2 wins that Texas State had against top 10 teams is what put them over the top. My understanding is they were the last team in. So South Alabama, if you want to point it head to head, yeah, you can go ahead and groan. But if you want to be an at-large team, you've got to play the kind of schedule necessary, and you got to win some of those games. Texas State did, and so they're in the tournament.
So we've seen players come and go with the Cajuns. We've seen coaches come and go, but it's still the same result. What's the secret to the success on the Bayou there? Man,
I honestly think that Cajun softball's a great story. They started the program. Yvette Girard, who's a Hall of Fame coach, was named the coach of the team. She was paid a part-time salary. Her mother actually handmade the first uniforms that they wore. And she went recruiting and slept in her car because they didn't have. So, she went from that to building a nationally recognized program. And, they have been now for more than 30 years. They have been a team that has been nationally respected. And what winds up happening is you're able now to go ahead and when you call somebody and say, hi, if you're an assistant coach, say, hi, we're from Louisiana and we want to talk to you. They want to listen because it's a program that you want to be a part of. And Dusty, look, you've been down here before. When recruits come here during the season and they see what the atmosphere is like at Lamson Park, trust me when I say they want to be a part of it, because there are a lot of schools in the Power 5 that don't have nearly as nice a facility or nearly as nice a crowd support or nearly the passion that they have here.
And on that note, Jay, I don't think it's that they want to be a part of it. I just don't think they want to be against it if they go somewhere else.
Well, that's a possibility too. That is certainly a possibility. But no, and look, Jerry Glasgow came in with a ton of connections. He's recruited extremely well. I think the thing about this Cajun team this year, when you look at the lineup every day, you had 1 senior in the lineup, and you had 2 juniors, and then the rest are all freshmen and sophomores. So this was a very young team lineup wise. Now you had a senior, 2 senior pitchers in Megan Sherman and Kendra Lamb. Well, in a third in Carly Heath, who was the player of the year in the league, but was a 2-way player. But when it comes to the lineup, it was very, very young, and boy, there's a lot of talent there.
So you get to travel east down I-10 for the Friday game against Omaha to kick off, and then LSU or Prairie View A&M. Is this a bigger game more for the kind of regional rivalry and maybe the flag of the state, or is it bigger for the Sun Belt, or both?
Well, I think it's big both ways. Now, the Cajuns and Tigers play every year, and they didn't used to. Neither Yvette Girard nor Beth Tarina was willing to schedule the Cajuns under the previous coaching staff. But now that Jerry Glasgow is the coach, they play in what they call the LSU crossover, where they put a tournament together and they'll play one day in Baton Rouge and the next day in Lafayette or vice versa. And they did that early in the season. They split 2 games. Cajuns won in Baton Rouge, Tigers won in Lafayette. I think that there are a lot of people that are kind of tired of seeing these 2 teams play in the same regional. I really think that they're, and I think LSU fans in a way share all of this, where they'd like to see the Cajuns go someplace else. Because, first of all, you'd like to bring new teams into your park, but secondly, the Cajuns have won their share. And this is a team this year that arguably should have been selected to host a regional. So it's going to be very competitive. 2 teams get after each other. I think the teams have a lot of respect for one another. The fans don't. And so it can get a little testy inside the park. But the Cajuns have an opportunity this weekend, and we'll see what happens.
We haven't talked since basketball. Cajuns got robbed again in an NCAA tournament there, and ironically against Tennessee. What does Bob Marlin do next?
Well, he re-recruits his entire team because I think now you have to. And we saw Jeremy go through that at Arkansas State, losing a guy like Omier. It's hard now. And the point guard Themis Fulks decided to enter the portal, and then he pulled his name out. And now the portal is closed for Jordan Brown, but the question is, does he turn professional or does he come back for one more year? And I think that that's a story that is still to be written. You lost a couple of solid senior guards and Jalen Dalcourt and Greg Williams Jr. And they've signed a junior college guard and they've signed a couple of freshmen. We'll see, but hey, the potential success for next year all centers around his number 21 comeback. And if the answer to that one is yes, then you're going to contend again.
And of course, we always get to hear the legendary Jay Walker giving the play-by-play on that.
And I don't charge for autographs.
You should. That'd be a good revenue stream for you.
No, you're the one that needs to charge for autographs, Jeremy. For crying out loud. Everybody reads your stuff, man.
I do charge, but actually, I'm the one who pays the fee.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll take your money anytime.
He autographs $100 bills. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen.
Oh, nice.
And there's still people that turn him down.
So thinking about the future, Jay, too, football season is, kind of coming up. I think we're hitting June and July content, so it's getting kind of hard to wrap our heads around football. But there's been a lot of transferring. There's been a lot of portal action. There's been a lot of rearranging of rosters. How'd the Cajuns come out on that?
I was going to say pretty well until about 3 weeks ago. They had a couple of wide receivers went into the portal. One of them signed with Liberty, and but the Cajuns have had some receivers, and I don't think they were getting hurt there. But then, Trey Amos went into the portal. He was probably the best returning corner that the Cajuns had. He wound up signing with Alabama. And just this past week was the big blow. And as a graduate transfer, he was allowed to enter late. But Cam Pedesclo, the starting safety for the Cajuns, is in the portal. That's a big loss because I think he was maybe the top safety in the Sun Belt Conference, top returning safety. So that's a blow. And, Mike is different from most coaches in that the Cajuns don't use the portal. They prefer to bring kids in and develop them. And I understand to a great extent why that's the case, because the portal's a double-edged sword. You can get some talent, okay? But as Richie Riley at South Alabama has learned, you can also wind up recruiting somebody else's problems. And I think that hurt South Alabama until this past year, because they brought in some D2 transfers who were so happy to be there.
Sure.
But they had that, but year in and year out, they've had some chemistry issues that they didn't have this past year, which is why they made it to the championship game. So I understand Mike's philosophy, because so much of this, what the Cajuns have done since the arrival of Billy Napier, has had everything to do with chemistry and culture.
Yeah, my thought about the transfer portal has always been that while the Power Five grabs the stars from the Group of Five, it's the Group of Five getting the malcontents from the Power Five, and then you realize, oh wow, this is why this guy's having problems with the roster on their last roster. Is now we got to fix that.
Yeah, I agree with that. Now, don't get me wrong. Sometimes you wind up getting some good ones, but you take the chance every time you go into the portal, especially if it's somebody from a Power Five, that you wind up taking the chance of hurting your locker room chemistry. Tony Robichaux is one of the smartest human beings I've ever met in sports. And he used to say, chemistry can make a great team average or an average team great. And we've learned that. We learned that in the years that Billy Napier was here, and now with Mike as well. The Cajuns have played above their talent level, I think, when you take a look at what they've done the last 5 years, because their chemistry and their culture has been outstanding.
I think you can look at James Madison in the same way, Jay. I mean, they came in with a roster full of FCS players, and because the team chemistry was so good, everybody's on the same page, everybody's excited to be there, did really well in the Sun Belt. So yeah, I agree 100% with what you're saying, Jay. It's really more about the culture and chemistry than it is in a lot of ways about team talent.
Yeah, and you know what? I think that's one reason why Jake Spavital wound up being unemployed, because he would go out, he wouldn't even recruit high school kids. He'd bring in all transfers. And where did it get him? Well, it got him a buyout, but that was about all it got him. I think you got to be careful with the portal. I think that you can use it to your advantage, but man, that means that you've got to go out and vet each and every recruit to make sure that they're not going to be a cancer in your locker room.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right about Spavital. It looked like me and Thibs were talking about, man, is this the future of team building? Is simply go all portal and nothing else? It seems like either it was an idea that was ahead of its time, or an idea that was just flawed from the beginning. I guess
it works on paper. We just saw that it doesn't always work out in reality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, true.
And we saw that at South Alabama basketball too. It took a while for South Alabama to sort of mesh and gel. They were a basketball team that was built almost exclusively on the transfer portal. Seemed like the team to beat last season, didn't really gel until this season. So yeah, it's interesting to watch.
Well, and it's interesting to note too that the two best players in South Alabama's team, the two leading scorers, were D2 transfers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he's gone out and signed a couple of more. I think he's realized that, hey, wait a minute. I can find some of these kids that are hungry to play in Division I, hungry to come in and show that they can compete at this level, and are going to come in. They're going to be good teammates, good students. It worked for him last year. It got him to a championship game. We'll see if it works for him again.
Jay, as you shake the magic 8 ball, we're still a couple months away from Sunbelt Media Days. Who do you see being the top dog whenever we're meeting in late July?
I think it's going to be Troy and South Alabama again on the west side. And I think I give the edge to Troy there. James Madison is once again not eligible. How stupid is that? Okay. I mean, let me just say that. How stupid is that? Now, but they're not eligible again. And I think that leaves the East wide open. Coastal's got McCall back, but they've got a new coaching staff. Has Marshall improved enough from last year to get over the top? What's Georgia Southern going to be like in year 2 with their coaching staff? I think that with James Madison out of the conversation, I think the East could be all over the place. And I didn't even mention App State, who I gotta believe is going to be better, after, really pooping the bed last year, if you want to get down to it. So I don't know about the East, but I sure do like the two Alabama schools in the West.
I agree with that. I think once again, the road to lifting the trophy from Commissioner Gill goes through Alabama.
Yep, I think so.
Jay, always great talking with you. Look forward to seeing you in person, getting that free autograph there in late July when we're all celebrating in New Orleans on the streetcars going up and down St. Charles Avenue. Yeah,
it's going to be I got a fun weekend coming up. Cajun baseball's at Southern Miss to close out the regular season. Then, of course, we'll be in Montgomery next week for the conference tournament. And then we've got time off. I hate this time off, guys. I hate it. I don't. I mean, I'm good for the first couple weeks, and then it's like, okay, now what do I do? And I was fortunate enough last year that the baseball team won the tournament, and I got an extra week. I'm going to hope for that again this year, but it's going to be fun in Hattiesburg this weekend. I can tell you that.
Beware of the oars.
Yep.
So we had a great conversation with Jay talking about Cajuns through and through, mostly softball, as they get ready to head east to Baton Rouge for that NCAA regional kicking off on Friday. I guess you can't really kick off a softball. What do you do, Jeremy?
Underhanded, throw it. I don't know. But here's the thing with Jay. We touched on almost everything with Jay. Jay's such a good ambassador for the Cajuns. It was good talking to him.
He, as always, love talking to Jay. But what Shane loves even more than talking with Jay, since he wasn't there for it, he loves some plugs, promos, and parting shots. And because I know that y'all are on the struggle bus trying to come up with this, and let me help you out.
Okay, all right.
So when you have a job, you get your bank of vacation time, you get your sick leave, right? Shane, how much time could you take off if you were sick from work?
I've got, I think, 3 weeks of whatever I need time off. It's not great.
3 weeks. Jeremy, what does your boss allow you as a small business owner?
Well, the theoretically it's an infinite amount of time, but really it's maybe about 6 hours. I can't afford to take any time off.
An IBM employee left his job when he was sick.
Okay.
And he's been on that leave for 15 years.
Wow. He's living the dream.
And because of his medical retirement or sickness, as long as he remains disabled, unable to work, they pay him 75% of his check.
Man, how do we get this gig?
I am with you. However, 75%, Jeremy, not enough. Ooh. He has filed a disability discrimination suit against IBM because they did not give him a raise in the 15 years that he has been sick.
He was probably due for a raise at least, every 5 years or every few years, right? So give that man his raise, right?
I don't know the end of that story, but I saw that and I was dumbfounded by it. And so somewhere in there's a moral to the story, but I missed it when I was like, dude, you're getting your check for 15 years. I would own you in Call of Duty if I had 15 years of playing Xbox every day.
And he wants more. That's the fun part. Here's the thing, too. I'm looking at the FunBelt podcast employee handbook, and I'm not seeing any time for sick leave or anything, Tibbs. Tibbs, do I have to raise a complaint with HR?
Shane?
Shane's HR?
Yes. And as soon as I get a paycheck for doing this, then I'll start looking into our sick leave.
All right. The moment we get paychecks, we can start maybe carving out sick leave into the bylaws of our employee contract.
Shane, what do you have for us?
Hard to top that.
Yeah, what you gonna do?
I'm just gonna do a plug.
Do it.
A promo, the usual.
All right.
Check us out, DNR Sports Online or DNR Online/sports to read daily news record stuff. Mostly JMU right now, but as football season creeps closer and closer, you'll start seeing all kinds of stuff from all kinds of Sunbelt teams. So yeah, check that out.
Now, Shane, in your byline, say Shane Mettlen, sports editor and Heisman Trophy voter.
It doesn't say either one of those things.
Okay. Does it say
not the sports editor for one?
Okay. All right. Intrepid reporter and continuous insulter of Appalachian State athletics.
No.
Hey, no, because it doesn't fit.
We'll go back to the teams that we think overachieved a little bit in baseball. I think Appalachian State's probably up there too.
Absolutely.
Love me Mountaineers.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There's your parting shot.
Yeah.
I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to save your life because Appalachian State fans are closing in on you. They've got the drone hovering over your house. They're looking to take you down. You think you can appease them by praising their baseball team, and by golly, I think that's going to work. I think you just drop a little praise on those guys, and all is good.
Jeremy, give us your infinite wisdom to close out this episode.
Guys, do you remember being like a teen, like a hormony teenage boy, and being excited for the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue?
Yes.
Before we go any further, I considered doing a Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue, parting shot, and thought better of it. So we'll let Jeremy take it from here.
No, I did. I loved it. It was like because for the swimwear, of course, because I was very interested in fashion, and I'd love to see what the ladies were wearing. So I would collect the issues of Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition for those. And, they had some legendary models that would go through there, like Christy Brinkley, I think was one of the star ones, and later on the name suddenly escaped me, but I can see them in my mind. But it looks like Sports Illustrated is coming out with its Sports Illustrated edition. If you have the Twitters and you follow Sports Illustrated, they've been kind of pumping up some promos for that, and some of the usual models are in there. They've got some interesting ones. Remember the LSU player who got into sort of the row with the star from Ellis? I'm sorry, the star from where was she from?
Iowa.
Oh, Iowa. That's right. She's in it. Angel, what's her name? She's in it. There's a gymnast from Georgia. She's in it. And so is 82-year-old Martha Stewart. She has a spread, and I believe she's going to be on one of the alternate covers. And I'm going to get you guys' view on that. Martha Stewart, does that sort of move the needle for you? Will you be checking out what she has inside the magazine?
Hey, I didn't know that she was that old. And
she looks great.
She does, and I watched her High Life Cooking or whatever show she did there with Snoop Dogg. It was interesting to see that duo.
Yeah,
but no, it is not something I'm going to go out of my way to get. Now, if somebody maybe leaves one in a doctor's office, I'll thumb through it.
Oh, there's Martha Stewart. Shane, you probably like, as a reporter, you probably would want to see what's going on with that, right?
I think she looks great, and I've always been a fan of older women, and I think she looks great. But I just don't think you talked about the nostalgia of the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue. I remember the moment I saw Kathy Ireland,
yes,
and realized, oh, this is why those older guys in town do crazy things for women. But But the whole Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue, it just doesn't move the needle anymore. I mean, that's why they have to try to do outside the box things, but it's just, there's too much available everywhere for,
they've moved
even the most beautiful woman in the world in a bikini is not really going to do it for most people anymore.
Yeah, you know what? I think you're right. I think that's why they've kind of tried to find sort of different ways, whether it's sports celebrities or sort of I've seen a lot of like online influencers getting involved. Maybe even actresses that are making comebacks. I think Megan Fox is in there this year. And then you have, somebody like Martha Stewart, and you're like, okay, well, all right, maybe you need this type. Maybe now it used to be tan lines were the issue. Now maybe the storyline is the issue for Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue. And you know what? I think I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to check it out and see what was the motivation for Martha Stewart to do that. And who knows? Maybe it's because she looks great in a swimsuit.
Hey, Jeremy, when you get through with that, ship it my way.
This is a mini meditation guided by Bombas. Repeat after me. I'm comfy. I'm cozy. I have 0 blisters on my toes. And that's because I wear Bombas, the softest socks, underwear, and t-shirts that give back. One purchased equals one donated. Now go to bombas.com/listen and use code LISTEN for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/listen and use code LISTEN at checkout.